Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED, Labor Day weekend of 2016. Pete Belcastro, one of the real estate guys with you. I'm a principal broker at John L. Scott Real Estate in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week here on KMED to talk about all sorts of real estate-related issues and topics that surround us in Jackson and Josephine County. Now, in 7.5 years, we've never run out of things to talk about, and I don't think today that's going to happen either, because Sheriff Corey Falls from Jackson County is in the house with us on the Real Estate Show today. And Sheriff, first of all, Corey, nice to have you back with us here today.
Thank you. It's surprising that it's been a year.
Yeah, they go by quickly, and the older you get, the faster they seem to go by as you go around.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's great to have you back with us. And before we talk about some of the kind of those things, real estate related things, just bring our listeners up to date, maybe a little bit, if you would, regarding what's happening out in the sheriff's department. Because I was telling you a year ago, of course, you had been sheriff a short time, a year ago. And I remember the sheriff's department. You were in the news. You guys were in the news an awful lot. But things seem to be quiet out there. I'm sure there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, things have been quiet, I guess. Publicly, and maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. Who knows?
Yeah.
When it gets campaign season, maybe I'll kick out.
It changes, yeah.
But I think there's just a lot of other things going on that's taken up the national media. Of course, everybody's tuning in to the national presidential campaign. That's taken a lot of attention on over the last year. So maybe there's other things that have distracted. But in terms of the sheriff's office, it's been great. So we've been busy, we've been busy,
doing normal sheriff things.
Just normal work keeps us busy, and I can tell you our problems resolve around our staffing woes, just getting people hired and into place, and that's what we've been working really hard on. We've been almost have continuous hiring processes going, whether for trained deputies or officers to new recruits.
All the time, isn't it?
So,
You're just like a business. When you have a business and you lose somebody who you've had for a while, it takes a while to get them caught back up again, doesn't it? And you face that, you said, all the time. Wow.
It takes a long time. In our business, it can take anywhere from 9 to 15 months to hire somebody. So if we lose somebody, it puts us, a year and a half behind sometimes.
Well, I guess, and when you hire for a sheriff department, it's not like hiring somebody in the private sector, is it? I mean, in a lot of ways. No, it's not.
Quite a process that they have to go through. You have to go through the full application process. Then we bring them in and run them through a couple different interviews, and they have to go through a physical agility test and all that. And if we do select them after that, maybe 2 or 3 month time frame, then they have to do a psychological test, a medical test, a background investigation, which takes another couple weeks. And then, then if they're lucky enough to get hired, we have to send them to the academy and training. And so that takes a long time. And then, it's a tough job. You get out of it, and the first time you get spit on, you're like, well, I don't know if this is really what I expected.
Well, hey, with all the attention, in the country on law enforcement, is it difficult to hire people? Are you having a hard time doing that?
It is. We're having a hard time hiring people, and not only does it take a long time, what's going on around the country. There's not a lot of people that are excited to jump into this. So it does limit our applicant pool, where historically we may have got 1 to 200 people applying for jobs. Now it's closer to 40 or 50.
Really?
So I do think people do see what's going on around the country and watching that, and it's like, I don't know if that's something that I want to get involved in. So it's a concern.
You see, you're going to have to be like every other organization or every other group of people, whether it's the Builders Association who complain they can't find people to work, kinds of things. Gee, you follow into that same category.
We do, and we're seeing it across the state also, with a lot of openings around the state. So we're competing with other agencies also. Interesting.
What else? In the last year, have you learned about this place? Crimes and the kinds of things that are going on that you have to deal with. What's the status of that?
A lot of different things. I remember putting something out over the summer it was a Facebook post of just all the different types of calls that we handled. I asked our analysts to, just let's just put out to the public what we do. And I was amazed just county calls are different than city calls. The animal stuff that we have to deal with, a lot of traffic problems, of course,
Sure.
that we want to continually monitor. Your regular crimes, your nuisances. I mean, it varies, the different complex type of things that we're in. And then, as we've seen in the news this year, we've had 2 major searches just for people going on a simple run, and it's turned into a major search. And our search and rescue is busy. Our marine unit is busy. The waterways.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun.
But
all that stuff.
Corey, is there any one thing that's more prevalent that maybe you see in your analysis that trends or something out there that is happening?
I don't see anything one thing more than another. We probably get more. I was surprised when I've looked at some of our numbers, some of the suspicious circumstances type calls that we get. And that can be anything. That can be, and you don't know, because you don't know if that's a 1 deputy call or a 2 deputy call, but just somebody for what could be something simple, somebody calling, and we're glad they call, but it could be a complaint about anything. So nuisance, those non-criminal type of calls that people don't expect, we do that a lot, and it can be anywhere from somebody just hears somebody in their in their backyard at the middle of the night. They don't know what it is. Or is something where it's, hey, I walk this route every day, or I live in this neighborhood, and this is different to me. Yeah. So we get a lot of that.
Boy, well, I want to talk to you about real estate related things in that and how the sheriff has a role to play in that.
Sure.
I think when Kelly Madding was here from the county development services director, that I think I told her at the end of the show, you seem to be, because of the rules that you're making, you're like the single most person responsible for real estate kind of in the county, because you so many decisions come through you. In the world of enforcement, or the kinds of things you said a year ago, and I remember this, let's wait a year regarding recreational marijuana, and let's wait a year before we come up with rules. Let's see what happens.
Sure.
All right. And so let's start there.
Okay.
A year later, what has happened? What are the calls that you get? What's that trending like? Because we'll start with that.
We see the nuisance calls. That's the calls that, more than anything, it's a nuisance to people. And when I talk with people, they'll say, Sheriff, we don't care really if this is legal or not. And I think that's why a lot of people voted and it passed. But they said, if we would have known that these are some of the nuisances, and I'll explain some of the nuisances. All right. We get dog complaints, people, water, people either hauling water or a theft of water. People are concerned about their property value going up or down.
Absolutely. Oh, I hear that all the time.
That is definitely a concern when it comes to traffic.
Traffic in and out.
Traffic in and out is a concern. There's, especially in this valley, fires and fire hazards are a concern. Sure. So those are the 5 things that we see a lot when people call and say, my neighbor or my neighborhood or this area is a nuisance because of this. And that's what we have been hearing the most.
And I'm trying to think nuisance. I mean, that's a strange. It's a hard thing to, what's a nuisance to me may not be a nuisance to you.
You're right.
What do you do then? Do you answer these calls? Do you send someone out on this type of thing?
We answer the call, but we don't always send somebody. So depending on the discussion, sometimes we'll send it down to Kelly and her department, because they have code enforcement out of there, and some of these are code enforcement things that they need to follow up on. If we think that there's a threat or a danger, we'll always go. Okay. We'll always go if there seems to be some type of public safety concern. But you're exactly right. What's a nuisance to me may not be a nuisance to you. So we have to dive down into that a little more, figure out what the problems are. But it's certainly related to all marijuana.
Yeah. Are law enforcement okay with the way the rules are being developed by the commissioners, the city councils, kinds of things? Or are you involved with any of those? Do they ask you your opinion, or how is those decisions coming, and how did that affect you? We
get involved sometimes when we're asked about this. We're not involved in developing the laws or anything like that. Our stance is we'll enforce the laws that you have. But if we're asked similar to what you're asking. What are you seeing? What are some of the problems? Sure. And as we formulate these laws, what are some of these things that you're seeing that might impact those types of things? And we talk about the same thing, the nuisance. I think when you get into this discussion about the laws, you have to get into discussion about the banks and who will accept money and who won't. And if the banks won't accept money, then that will leave people holding a lot of cash at their residence, which I could be a public safety concern. So that's some of the input that we're asked and we look at. We don't get into how they do the laws or what the laws are going to be. We'll just say, let us know what they are, and we'll go and enforce them.
I remember telling you last year, whatever happens, you're going to have to be the one to enforce this. Yeah. And we're seeing that happening now. Yeah. Are the grows that you see, and you talk about people will complain values and things, are the growers, the people who are doing this, are they following the laws the way they are written now, do you think, or are they skirting them, trying to do things not legally, just to grow more, have more?
Sure. Well, it's hard to say because there's certainly still a criminal element. There's still people that do this unlawfully, and they don't care what the laws are. They're going to do it to make a profit and keep doing things unlawfully. So there's some people that just don't care. Mm-hmm. And then there are people that are the law-abiding citizens that want to do this for whatever personal reason they have. And I think there are a segment of people that try to do that. So I think we're seeing both. We're still, there's no shortage of the criminal element. Uh-huh. We're still seeing that. And we're still seeing the people that are trying to do this the right way. And that's conflicting right now because the people that are doing lawfully, it's frustrating to them, the criminal element, because that is still existing.
Now, this is going to be the first full year, of actually growing.
Yes.
I mean, we thought last year, remember, it had just been new, so you hadn't had a year. So this is going to be a real test, I think, this fall. Yeah. Especially in the nuisance area. You're probably going to get a lot because there's so many more growing out there than there was even a year ago.
It is, and I think we are going to see that, especially as plants begin to bud and mature, and there's more people out trimming, and there's more traffic. That's also going to be time when, in my concern, is when the pod is starting to bud, where people are going to start trying to steal that. I'm sure that there's criminals out there. They have their eyes on certain grows, and when it starts to bud, they're going to sneak in and start stealing that. Yeah. So that's going to be a concern that I see that we're going to have to monitor and probably respond to this fall. And then there's going to be people that are going to protect that. So
I was going to say, people are going to have cameras, you're going to have protection, and you could have potential. What about out in the public land? Mm-hmm. I remember a year ago again. I remember you said that it's come out of the shadow. Yeah. And at least it's in the open now. Yeah. Is that still the case a year later? Are the public lands, are we mostly rid of this now? I know there was a big bust down in Siskiyou County recently, I know about that. But how about ourselves here?
I think it's slowed down a little bit here. I was really surprised about that Siskiyou County story a week ago. They said they've had I think they said 7 or so. There was a lot, but it was more than I thought. And I was like, wow, that surprises me that they're still doing that. I don't think we've seen it that much here. I don't think it's been on public land. There's really no need to. And we haven't really seen those big, like they've had in years past in Jackson County, where there's just been thousands of plants on public lands. We haven't seen that this summer. Mm-hmm.
What about the large commercial growers are now coming out? And my question to you is this: I don't understand what the OLCC is thinking in terms of allowing big grows, commercial grows of 40,000 square feet of space. I mean, that's huge, what you can grow in that, and we're going to see those. But the thing is that you can't consume it all in the state. Not everybody in the state can consume what is being grown in these things, right? Right. I mean, that's the way it is. All right, it's going the black market. They've created that black market, it seems to me, because these things are so large. Is that a fair way to say that?
Well, I know the plants, when they made the original law about you could only have 6 mature plants and those types of things. These plants nowadays are enormous. They produce more marijuana than you can have. So when you're talking about how much a plant produces and what these do, there always seems to be a larger amount than need be. And I don't think people are responsibly, taking all their extra stuff and it's like, okay, we're just going to go and burn it. Well, then depending on what you mean by burn it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So, so there is so much extra, whether it's an industrial building that they're doing on or someone's grow in their in their field. There's always seems to be extra, and I know there's been cases where a lot of this is going back east, and it's expensive. There's top dollar back east.
As we talk about it in the mean, it's creating $1 billion cash industry here as we go along. We're on the Real Estate Show with Corey Falls, and I want to ask you too about what happens in areas where this is going on, and is land value is going to be affected by it. There's so many ways you can talk about this, and we're coming right back with Corey Falls, and the Real Estate Show continues right after this. The Real Estate Show rolls on KMED Labor Day weekend of 2016. Hey, I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend. This is the best time of the year, isn't it? Look at the weather. Hasn't that been wonderful this week where it's cooler? And this is why we live here, right? Because we love the weather sometimes. And hope you're having a good Labor Day weekend. School started, football season underway, the Ducks and Beavers and all that. And so Joe and I always say, everything's right with the world and whenever September rolls around. On the Real Estate Show today, we're talking with Corey Falls, who's the sheriff of Jackson County, and joined us here today. We're talking about recreational marijuana and its effects on real estate and law enforcement and all the other things this has brought with it as we now enter, I guess, almost the second full year of this. Anyway, there's just lots going on as we hear from the sheriff today talking about that. I got to tell you, I was telling you a little bit that a year ago when you were here, we were talking about the land rush of people buying up rural properties. Mm-hmm. I mean, our rural residential properties were pretty popular, as you know, a year ago. And then the rules changed a little bit. Remember, because now it's you can only have these grows on EFU land, or I believe it's Forest Reserve or something, one of those there. And so as the rules came out, things changed. And I was telling you, Corey, that we would call it the last gold rush, because then people were just buying stuff unseen. Mm-hmm. The issues of water. I mean, all this kind of stuff. I just wanted the land. It was EFU. I'll write you a check kind of thing, Right. Well, as that's changed in that last segment, April, May, and June anyway of this year, rural sales were down almost a quarter in Jackson County. So I'm hoping we'll look at them again next week. But maybe that big land rush is over. The values only climbed a little over 1% this last year, right, versus a 54% increase in the previous 5.
Yeah, I think it's still. I think we're going to see some ups and downs as we go through with this. And the other thing that impacts this is the water.
Yes.
Where's the water at? Where's the land at? How are you going to get water to where you need to be? Even if you find a place that you can afford and that's on the market, if it's not a place that you can readily get water to, or you don't have that access, then that certainly has to be something that you have to take into consideration.
And I've talked with a number of clients and people just as we talk about this, and many people who live in rural areas, and they can be in rural residential areas, and you have grows around you or whatever, they're really concerned about land values, of trying to resell their places, and people coming out and buyers who may not want that and see this out there. The other thing that comes up all the time, as you said earlier, was that people say, I don't necessarily care about the grow that they're doing this, and my neighbors are down the road or in my street, but they're just so darn ugly that they look like just awful stuff.
Not only that, and one of the nuisance I forgot to explain is the odor.
The odor.
We get a lot of odor complaints, and for whatever reasons, if people are just buying land just to do this, it takes away from that neighborly feeling. Mm-hmm. And that knowing your neighbor, right, and living down the street from somebody that if you're just going to buy property and set up a business there and not interact with your neighbors, that causes problems.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. I think that the other issue, of course, about the odor. Okay, and look at last year. I mean, look, we didn't even have a quarter of the amount being grown a year ago as we have this year.
Right.
I will bet you that you're going to probably be in it. You're going to have a lot more of that complaint this year. A lot more.
Yeah, we have. And that's been part of the nuisance calls that, like I said, I forgot to mention that before, but a lot of odor complaints.
Yeah. You're going to see that. The other thing people who live in rural areas are concerned about in terms of their properties is the issue of water.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on a well and and you're seeing your well levels drop or whatever, and you see grows around you, people are, whether they're using this or not, people are really, really concerned and start to blame somebody for this.
Yeah.
You're going to see that probably. That's going to come up more.
I already got a complaint last week from somebody that sent in a complaint to the sheriff's office saying, hey, keep an eye on this area because I think water's being stolen. So we're already getting some of that information. Yeah.
And I think what's going to be the result of this is that the state is going to start monitoring wells. It's a big issue, but I have a feeling because of this. I mean, this is one of the unintended consequences. Maybe I don't know if you can say that or not, but this is one of the things that may happen because if you're stealing water out of the wells to irrigate your grow,
right?
That's illegal.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
No, you can't.
And if you can affect your neighbor's wells, that's going to affect the property values again in those places, and that's why people are concerned about it, and they should be because it could affect it. My other crazy question to you is that they made this an agriculture product, Corey, that you can have. It's an agriculture. It's like we treat it like an orchard or potatoes or something like that. And now, I don't mind. And as a result, on EFU or rural lands like this, they get a big property tax, reduction. I mean, they pay. You go to rural property, some of them pay very little. Now we have these big grows on them. And they're in EFU lands, and they're paying very little property tax because they're an agriculture product. I don't understand that one. That one bugs me, and I just don't get it because sounds to me like the property taxpayers are subsidizing the EFU, the agriculture grows under the label of recreational marijuana. It's
yeah, I don't know.
My political statement of the day.
Exactly.
I'm going to run with that or something. It's just something that's out there. I think that's not going to go away.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. Well, so you really it'll be an interesting fall here for you. I'm curious as to how that will actually end up going. It's going to be different than a year ago. I have a feeling.
I think it is. I think it's going to be an interesting fall. We're going to see certainly a lot more recreational marijuana out there. Monitor some of the house fires also.
Okay.
That are going to be related to cooking some of the marijuana and some of those things that we've seen that in the past. Yeah. And I would pay attention to that, especially when things start budding. So I think there's going to be some things that might not initially come out as something that you think would be marijuana related, but after the fact, we're going to see the connect.
Part of it, we talked about how much is grown, and that one of the, I guess the things that I hear from people who say, well, they argue the other side is that, well, a lot of this goes into edibles, and it takes more to make edible stuff than it does just to regular use. How do you think the medical issue, because it's still out there, we still have the medical part of this, which are people allowed to grow larger things on their properties.
Yeah.
Do you guys differentiate that? How do you respond kind of to that kind of world?
We don't really. I know the DEA just came out last month, and they verified that it's, in their opinion, there's still no medical purpose for marijuana. When it comes to us and enforcement, it all depends on, if we're going to enforce a law, it depends on amounts and if you're distributing and how it all goes. So we don't really care if it's medical or not, unless they have a certain amount and with medical cards and they're over and all that. But whether someone has it for medical purposes or just because they have a lawful right to do it, we don't get into that.
I mean, you'd be working. It would just be you have to know people now. Yeah. You'd really be into the thing. So the biggest thing we're working about is the people who are going to take advantage of the laws as they state. Those are the people that I suppose, if I'm hearing you right,
yes,
and you would target or at least pay attention to or something like that.
Yes.
Where do you go beyond that? I mean, what do you do if someone is in that kind of a mode? Are you guys, your deputies are going to go out and like raid the place, pull it up kind of thing? Are we still in that mode, or are we beyond that?
No, I don't think we see a lot of that. In fact, I know our agency and local drug units, when it comes to some of the compliance stuff, if let's say if they're over a pound, usually that's just seized and you don't take everything. You just kind of get them back within compliance. I've seen that a lot from local law enforcement when it comes to that. The big thing where we would really get involved is and this is similar to when the federal government gets involved.
Okay.
If there's major distribution and it's going across state lines and there's no. They're not even close to being within the law.
Yeah,
that's really. I mean, because there's so much of it. It's the egregious acts that we look at.
And some of that's pretty easy to find with these guys, isn't it? Out there. I mean, sometimes they're pretty. They're not smart.
Some people just don't care.
Yeah, that's true too. We're with the Real Estate Show with Corey Falls, the sheriff of Jackson County. One more segment to go here on the Real Estate Show. It's not only marijuana; he's got to deal with a lot of other things as well. We'll come back, talk to him about that right after this. Real Estate Show rolls on KMED this Labor Day weekend of 2016. Hope you're having a terrific weekend. This is, of course, the last weekend of summer. It kind of officially, the vacation season, I should say, ends. But I'm telling you, the older you get, though, the one thing that you really like about September and October is that that's a good time to travel if you're old, like myself, You can go because there's nobody out there. Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, it's done that now a couple of years, and it's fun. It's one of the few advantages there is about getting older, Corey. Is that you can travel in the fall and you're on your own almost out there. Anyway, Corey Falls is the sheriff of Jackson County, is joining us here today on the Real Estate Show. Joe's off today, and next week we'll have a John L. Scott Market Watch show for you. Those statistics from summer will be out, and I'm so looking forward to seeing exactly how the summer sales season has gone. We'll have that for you next week. Well, before we let you go and out of here, we talk about recreational marijuana and all of the consequences, unintended or whatever, that have resulted in the vote. And you're right. Some people said, I've heard that too, that I voted for it, but gosh, if I knew this, especially if you live somewhere where where it's affected you to where you didn't want that, you see the whole issue differently. So you're kind of the sheriff. You're kind of guy stuck right in the middle of the whole thing. So good luck with that. What else are the other unintended maybe consequences of it that you're seeing from the sheriff's side? Maybe not real estate related, but just people related and how it's affecting us.
Well, we have seen a slight uptick in our DUIs, driving under the influence of intoxicants.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't have the numbers right now to how many of those are just drug only related, opposed to alcohol, or both drug and alcohol. But we have seen an increase in that. We have changed some of the things we've done at the office to have cars out later to pay attention to some of the driving under the influence. So that's something we monitor. We've sent some people to more what we call DREs, our drug recognition experts, and they're the ones that if they suspect somebody's under the influence while they're driving and there's no alcohol in their system, they're the ones that do the evaluation to see if they can identify if they're under the influence of some type of drug or narcotic.
That's a whole new area, isn't it, for driving that you're all having to deal with.
Yeah.
I think of all the, law enforcement to me, that's the toughest job in the world. I mean, there's no question to my mind, because you have to deal with all of the problems that, we go home and shut our door and are away from it, where you have to face it every day and represent all of us in doing this. That's a tough job.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get any easier, does it? Besides those things, is the criminal element in terms of other things, meth, is that still problems out there that we're seeing, or has that gone away, or is this does everything just continue to bubble and grow a little bit year after year? Things
have continued to bubble. There's still a drug problem aside from marijuana, and whether that's aside from that, there's still big drug problems in our valley. Heroin's probably the worst.
Really?
Heroin problem, yeah, and been seeing more of that, and something we have to deal with on a daily basis is the drug problem.
It is. It takes a lot of your resources.
Yeah.
More and more. If we hear you right.
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want? How do you want the public to handle this? I mean, if you got to talk to people, and here's a chance. At least our listeners are pretty smart. I mean, they're really smart real estate consumers and things like that. But how would you want the public to handle what we're going to face or what's going to happen this fall? What's your advice to people?
We want people to call. People are really polite. We have great citizens in Jackson County. They put up with a lot, and a lot of times, sometimes people wait till frustration.
Yeah.
And things begin to escalate then. Right. We don't want people to wait until they're frustrated and things begin to escalate. But here's what I hear. It's like, well, Sheriff, I didn't want to call. It seemed so minor to me.
Yes.
And we need to get this information because we do. Within our dispatch system, when people call 911, we can track repeat calls. We can start developing information. And it's information. Law enforcement loves information and intelligence.
Yeah.
Just gathering stuff. Let us know what's going on so we can help solve problems. So that would be the number one thing I would tell to people in our community is don't hesitate to call. Don't think anything's too small. Give us the information and maybe somebody else had called and we can match things up and start solving problems.
Because they're not going to go away.
No.
And it doesn't in I don't know how statistics, whether it goes up and down, crime does go up and down kind of thing, but you got to be vigilant on that, and the public's got a role to play in it, don't they?
Yeah.
And we need to continue to do that.
Yeah.
And I would say to you, if you have issues regarding, especially in the rural areas as we come into the fall, is kind of document what's going on, and keep this down. So as government, they can change the rules.
Yeah.
If we as citizens say it's too many, I mean, these grows or whatever, they're having effects that they shouldn't be having. You can change these. You can change the rules here,
right?
And I'm just so curious as to how it'll be different from a year ago, and because this year is maybe what we're going to expect in the future. Maybe the number may level out now on the kinds of things, and this may be our new normal.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, isn't it? Isn't that a strange thing to say? Well, I don't know. Before we let you get out of here. It's good to hear the things we're going about the jail and the kinds of things that you guys are doing. You're busy all the time with this kind of stuff, and resources I know are a problem, but you still kind of make good, don't you? We
do, and we're still getting by, and we're always trying to look at ways to improve.
Yeah.
I can tell you in terms of like we're talking about having people call. We meet once a month as a staff with our analyst, and we look at our crime data and our problems and our traffic accidents where there's nuisance problems, and we talk about that and make sure that we're getting the resources out. Within our jail, we're trying to get our staffing up to hired, like we talked about in the beginning, to be able to open up our basement of the jail and still have that help the community. So we're busy.
Yeah. Well, I'm just really concerned, as you say, that getting new people, young men and women, into law enforcement is a real issue, much like it is for skilled labor in the trades that we see in Jackson County. It's costing people money. They're delayed. There's not enough people to do these jobs. And what in the world's going to happen? I mean, and if the problem, if you don't get good people, then you get less good people applying for these types of things, and it just makes your job constantly a problem then. And geez, I can't even imagine trying to fill those things that you've got going on around there. Well, that's all. It's one of the things, I guess, in government that you face. But it just amazes me that it takes so long to hire somebody, as you say, to do that. Yeah. Well, it'll be good to hear the reports as they come back. And I don't know where it's all going to lead. I guess isn't that the funny thing? I was like, you don't know where you're.
No, that's the fun part about our job. It's something new every day.
Yeah, and it's not going to go away. Well, Sheriff, you keep up the good work, okay? And
thank you.
We'll have you a year from now. We'll be a year older and a year wiser. We'll do it again, okay?
We'll talk again, yes.
We'll do it again. Sheriff Corey Falls, thanks here on The Real Estate Show. That'll do it for us today from KMED this Labor Day weekend. Have a great weekend, everybody, and God bless, and we'll see you next Saturday back here on The Real Estate Show.
You've been listening to The Real Estate Show on KMED AM and FM radio, presented by John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon, along with All Cities Property Management, the Home Builders Association of Jackson County, Ditech Mortgage, the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District, and the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. For guest information or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshoworegon.com. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only Real Estate Show on KMED.